Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Scott Clark.
And I'm Dave Dale. We got a kind of cool interview today with Brian Baldwin, who just made a presentation to council the day after. And he explains what it's like dealing with council, trying to deal with an issue on a development down at Premier. Mm-hmm. And I think it frames a really good sort of situation on how council could change things to make it easier for people like him.
I've done it before, and it can be nerve-wracking. We'll talk about more of that, though.
Yeah, so it's a good one. We cover a lot of different points. You'll learn a bit from it. Please take a second now to like it before you even see it, and comment and share and sign up for our newsletter. But first, we wanted to hear from our title sponsor, North Bay Toyota.
It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota. Attention truck lovers, have you been Tundra struck? The powerful and dependable Toyota Tundra is the new definition of grit. Ask us about amazing lease deals on a 2025 Tundra Double Cap SR 4-wheel drive and experience ingenious levels of capability, technology, and refinement. Or maybe you're an SUV lover? Take advantage of a limited shipment of 2025 RAV4s and discover the perfect blend of style, comfort, and efficiency in a compact SUV that ignites your desire to explore. Right now, get excellent lease deals on the Toyota RAV4 LE all-wheel drive and more. It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota, 640 McEwen, or online at northbaytoyota.com for details.
So it was interesting to find out after our interview that you were picturing a whole different thing.
I was picturing a totally different thing. So just as you listen to this interview, which I think is great, I'm glad you got Brian to come in, and because sometimes we have, I'll say high-profile guests with city council talking about heady things, and it's nice to hear, the citizen that has something that they want to explain to council and some of the challenges of going through that process. It was really nice. But so we're going to talk about Premier Road. We're going to talk about some of the reconstruction and a new pumping station, which takes the wastewater from the roads, right, and pumps it into the lake.
Well, actually, I think it pumps it through the sewer system back to the water treatment plant.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't pump it back into the lake.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it just keeps it moving.
Okay.
Because they have a long-term development plan for at the end of Premier, right, maybe connecting the road.
So part of it, what you're going to hear here is the redevelopment of that intersection. When you're going, I would say, southbound on Lakeshore Drive, where there's literally like an off-ramp that goes into Premier, right? And they're talking about doing a reconstruction of that intersection so that they can put this pump in, so it'll pump all the wastewater from the roads back to the water treatment plant. Now, this is site number 4 out of 4 that they picked. And Brian didn't know that it was going to be right at and here's where I started getting things wrong, right at the front of his house. So, as I said to you, as I've learned over time, now that I have, Cheryl and I have a house on Lake Nipissing, the front of your house is the part that faces the lake. So what you said before we went into the interview, Brian's concerned because this pump is going to be at the front of his house and they're going to put it on an island. So I'm thinking down that part of Nipissing, there's absolutely little islands out there. So I'm thinking, wow, they're going to put a pump on an island out front of his house. And I'm like, I'd be upset about that. And why would they do that? It's so beautiful, those little islands and everything. So this is in my mind the whole time going through this until when the interview's done and Brian's actually showing me the schematics. And I'm like, oh, the front of his house, meaning the back of his house, which is Premier Road, Lakeshore Drive. And now that I look at it, I'm like, that doesn't look so bad.
Really?
Well,
would you want that in front of your house? Or in the backyard, or whatever you want to call it?
The back of the house, which is the front of the house. It honestly, this is, I can only speak personally. When you're in your house, everything faces the lake. You don't look. The only time you would see it is when you're leaving your driveway, right? you don't actually see it. It's not part of your lexicon of living on the lake. Everything is focused towards the lake, not the back of your house. But I get it. Who wants that and why is it? I think it's kind of interesting. Why was it the fourth choice? And why, like, there's this plot of sort of, I'll call it dead land, but it's owned by someone who owns the car wash. It makes total sense. It would just go there and then probably wouldn't have to do as much reconstruction of that intersect. Like, there's a whole story. There's a whole thing that goes on. People don't just like, oh, let's just put it there. No, there's a whole story that went on that when you go to the fourth of four choices.
Yeah, well, one of the first two choices was across the street from the existing one halfway down Premier.
Yeah.
But it would take up it would be on the lake access, like where a lot of people would like to.
Right.
Or the neighbors would prefer not having it beside them.
Yeah, it would be right. Now that gets, to me, is a little more intrusive, right? Because the on the lake access side of that. Now it's a big, this pumping station's pretty big.
Well, the example that he was told to reference was the one that's beside West Ferris Arena, and that's fairly significant footprint.
So as we go into this interview, I just want to say that I thought they were putting it on an island out on Lake Nipissing at the front of his house. So he's staring at a pumping station. So
for all you Lakey viewers out there that don't understand what in front of your house is when it's the road part, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know it does. Hey, Dave, it's taken me more than 10 years to sort of wrap my head around what the front of my house is and the back of my house is.
Well, this will aid me in when I'm talking to one of you Lakeys, where
Lakeys,
when you're talking about your front of your house, because
that's the front of the house. Anyhow, really appreciate Brian coming in, and it was I've actually presented to council a few times, and even though I spoke on radio and we can speak freely here and stuff, it's really quite nerve-wracking. That clock goes, and then it's like you want to get your point across, and you're not usually jokey. It's somewhat of a serious topic you're probably talking about. It can be nerve-wracking.
Oh yeah, you're sitting there at a table by yourself. You got a rows of councillors just staring at you.
Yeah, they just stare at you.
You got the mayor up on his chair looking down at you, and you know the cameras are there. Yeah, it could be intimidating. I thought Brian did fairly well. He just didn't know how to space out his time for his presentation.
Yeah.
And
well, it's great. And Brian's coming up next, but I want to say a quick message from our sponsor, Source for Sports. They're local and they're part of our community, Source for Sports North Bay. They've been part of our sports hub for here in North Bay for a number of years. And I want to say hi to the whole gang there that just does a tremendous job. So not only do they have a wide range of products to service the sports community, they just have literally a wide range of products. I noticed I went in recently and they have Yetis, and then they have like a marketing arm in there, so they can actually print on the Yetis and they can do all your uniforms and things like that. They can do so much stuff, so they can actually brand all the stuff that you buy in there. And I think they have chili mousse and stuff too. If you don't want to spend money on the Yeti, I'm looking at you, Dave. No way you would spend money on a Yeti.
No
way. Chili mousse maybe. Yeti, nah. But they have a wide range of products. It's not just hockey gear. It's everything else in between as well. So if you're looking for the experts to guide you through it and to make sure you don't buy a Jill but buy a Jock, these are the people that look after you. Source for Sports, make sure you support them because they support this cast so we can have this community voice. So whenever your sports journey or wherever your sports journey takes you, make sure you visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street so Paul and his team can help you all along the way.
And catch Paul and I on the Sportscast every week. Today our guest is Brian Baldwin, who just last night had his first presentation to the North Bay City Council.
Hey!
How'd that go for you?
Well, not as well as I was hoping, but we did get through it, I think, and I think I got my point across.
Yeah, your point is there's multiple sort of levels to your point. One was the communication breakdown where you didn't actually received a letter they said they sent you to tell you about the public meeting last summer.
Yes.
And then as you've been trying to get a hold of them and talk to them, it's been a little bit iffy as far as their response. And your visit to City Hall to go figure it out, you found out how locked down and secure it is now.
Yes.
Right? I think you got your point across because they all sort of realized what was going on. And because that Premier Road construction is going in phases and that part's later, there's still a chance for you to have them change their plan.
Yes.
So can we get the backstory of it all, just so we can bring listeners and viewers up to speed on it all?
Well, for me, it really started late last November. And a city crew came up and they closed off the ramp coming off of the southbound lane on Lakeshore.
Mm-hmm.
Onto Premier, yeah.
Onto Premier. And they were there most of the day. And so later in that day, I was taking the dog for a walk. And as I was going by, I kind of just said to him, I said, "You're not going to find the oil down there." And just as a joke. And then we got into a discussion, and he told me that they were going to close that roadway and shut off the island and put in the sewage pumping station. So that kind of caught me, like, that would be the last place I would have thought. The last I knew was that the location was supposed to be over at the car wash. But that kind of depended whether they would, because it's private property there, they would have to purchase that property. Mm-hmm. So
part of it, anyways.
Yes, yeah. Just the sort of the part, the round parts, Lakeshore Drive and Premier Road, and in a way.
So what do you mean the sewage pumping? What sewage are they pumping? Sewage out of the lake or into the lake?
No, neither. It's sanitary sewer, but it's all from down Premier Road.
Kind of like a lift station aiding the circulation to make sure the flow continues. Is
that all part of this reconstruction of Premier Road?
Yes. They've added it. First of all, it started off as just repaving the road and extending the sidewalk. The sidewalk right now only goes down halfway to the park and then stops, which makes no sense. I mean, you go for a walk and then you end up walking along, and that's a terrible road to walk on because it's so busy. And it's not exactly a wide road either. So
and pothole filled for many years.
So the surface of the road itself is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But so anyway, they started off with fixing that up, putting in sidewalk, and then resurfacing the road. But I guess then they got the idea that the pumping station that they have there now, which is located sort of midway down Premier Road, is old. It's 50 years old. I guess it's done its course, and I guess it's deteriorating. Maybe it isn't big enough now, because I know the new one they're planning on putting in is about twice the size or more.
There's a long-term plan, talks of continuing Premier down and looping it back to Lakeshore through the back swamp there.
Yeah, when that'll happen is anybody's guess.
Yes, but North Bay City is good at forecasting into the future. That's why we have the Omichelle sports fields way out there too.
It'd be a good idea if they did that, but
yeah, no. So I think that has something to do with why they're supersizing it.
That could be, yes,
or upgrading it.
So tell me more about the presentation. So what were you trying to get across to councillors yesterday?
Well, because in the environmental assessment that's been done, and it says final on it, the site that they chose for the pumping station was right in front of my house at the corner, and which was new to me. The last I had heard, it was going to be over by the car wash, pending the purchase of the piece of property over there.
I think you raised it in the report. It actually says environmental impact part that they knew that they didn't want to put that station too close to a residential home.
Yes, in that report, well, they had alternate. They had leave it where it is now and just build a new one beside it, and then they had alternate places where to put it. So there was originally three alternate locations. One was sort of across the street from where it is on public access to the lake. The other one was up by Reumi Street, which is just across from the car wash. And the third one was at the car wash piece of property that needed to be purchased. And at that time, their number one choice ended up being the one at the car wash. So that was the last I had heard of it. So
maybe the people that live near the access point where the number one thought was were at the meeting public meeting last summer.
I couldn't find minutes or anything of those meetings,
well,
so
it's hard to find minutes.
I don't know if they're public record somewhere. I don't know.
Maybe
It's interesting that we have these conversations about minutes, and I'm like, well, what do you? And then, when you go back, it's hard to find minutes.
Yeah.
Well, it's just yes, because I'd certainly like to know if anybody showed up at the meetings, and if so, how many, and that sort of thing. I mean, it's
and who got to say what, and
exactly.
What swayed their decision, right?
So, how big is this pump that we're talking about? How big is the footprint?
The footprint. I mean, the pump sits in a well, and the well is 12 feet in diameter, and that's just the well where the sewage pipes go in, and I guess the pump is inside there. I don't know what, and then there's outside, there's an electrical panel and a generator to back up the electrical panel in case the power goes off. And those are quite large. They stand about, I think, about 6.5, 7 feet tall. And if you put them all side by side in a row, you're probably stretching about 30 feet.
I think you raised the example, and we're not 100% sure if this is the right example, but the one by the West Ferris Arena,
Yes,
which is quite formidable.
Yes, there
right?
is.
There's a
one
large.
there's one there, and that's the reference. They told me to go have a look at it.
Yeah. Well, that's a significant
Yes,
facility. It probably has a footprint of 30 by 30 feet.
I know the one you're talking about.
10 meters.
At least that, I would say, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Okay,
big.
that is large. Yeah.
Yeah. So to have that in front of your house,
I don't think they can plant too many cedar hedges around it to hide it for you.
Well, yeah, they told us that, it would be all landscaped and everything, but you know what happens with landscaping. It's nice the first year, and after that.
I thought it was funny when Councillor Chris Main suggested that maybe it's a good thing that they're closing that off-ramp so that you won't have traffic going across the front of your driveways and property. But your answer was?
I can't remember what he said, but yeah,
I think you
don't know
preferred the traffic, is what you said.
I did. Well, yes, really, I do, because, why would it? I just don't understand that. They use the excuse that it would slow traffic down coming down Lakeshore by having to slow down and turn the corner, whereas now it's just a ramp there. They can just smoothly go off of Lakeshore.
Well,
Right.
I suspect, I'm not a traffic engineer, but I have an opinion, because I go down there often to deliver the magazine. And if you're stopping to take more of a perpendicular path into Premier, you're going to have to back up. There's going to be traffic behind you. It's nice to have that sort of off-ramp to get off there,
Well, to
because
me,
you don't have to worry
it's
about
a bigger
anybody.
chance too of a rear-end collision or something.
Yeah, that'll slow the traffic down. Right?
I'd be curious. You're right, because I used to live at the end of Premier for a year or so when I first came to North Bay. And it's like, I don't want to say you pick up a head of steam, but you come into that, you're coming off Lakeshore Drive, and you should only be going, I think, 60 along there, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going into a much smaller laneway. So people are coming in there at a rate of speed for sure. But making a right-hand turn like that, it's been like that probably for how long, Brian? Like forever?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Far back as I can.
It will be.
You have to make a stop and turn.
Yeah,
right. That's going to back up.
Turn. Yeah. So why did they choose? If the first choice was the car wash, why did they choose putting it next to the lake?
Because they own the land. That corner.
I think it comes down to the city was trying to negotiate with the car wash property owner, and that didn't go their way, so they went the other way.
Right.
It looks like the third choice.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
Downward, the
Actually,
station.
it's a fourth location.
Oh, okay.
But they added that location because the first report it wasn't even mentioned as a location. They just had 3. But then they said, well, they couldn't come to terms with the owner of the car wash property or whatever, for whatever reason, whether it was the price or he just didn't want to sell. I don't know what. But at any rate, they wouldn't divulge what went on. They just said we couldn't do it. That's what I was told. And so someone came up with the right idea. Well, they'll just develop the corner there, and we own the land, and
Wouldn't the development of that corner, like doing the development of that corner, wouldn't that make it way more expensive? Like, or did they have to do it anyhow?
Well, who knows what's in their minds as far as what they think is a proper corner for there. They could.
They're going to have to put in a new sewage line anyway. So it'll go all the way along, and it'll start from where the current pumping station is, all the way up to that corner and hook into the Lakeshore Drive. So they're going to replace all that. So that's going to be a big dig actually for.
Yeah, it's a major project, but I think what you were saying is that the cost of redoing the whole sort of intersection, which might even end up requiring lights, who knows, may be enough to offset what they could have paid for the property off there and just redeveloped the intersection as it is. I haven't seen the reports, and I don't recall there are a lot of accidents there.
No,
You've lived there for 40 years, so
yes,
you know.
I've never seen one on the ramp part.
Yeah.
There has been a couple at the corner, or somebody pulled out too late or something like that, or they just didn't see a car coming. But so I think I've maybe seen 1 or 2. That's about it.
Turning left on the Lakeshore from there is a little dicey.
Yeah, because people are coming around depending on the rate of speed and stuff that people are coming around that corner.
Well, sometimes when they pull out from Premier onto Lakeshore, they do it too slow.
All right.
And and somebody's coming along Lakeshore, they're going quite a bit faster.
Right.
North Bay Echo is proud to partner with Twigs Coffee Roasters, a part of the community since 1995. Twigs offers a wide selection of quality beans, fresh roasted in-house every day. Find your favorite specialty drinks at our espresso bar. Rejuvenate with freshly squeezed juice, or treat yourself to mouth-watering selections from our gourmet deli. And don't forget our irresistible fresh baked goods, including uncompromising gluten-free options. Twigs has 5 locations to serve you, from North Bay to Sturgeon Falls to Sudbury. Order online for pickup at twigs.ca. And coming soon, you'll be able to order fresh roasted coffee beans direct to your doorstep from our distribution center in North Bay.
So is part of this conversation about the lack of knowledge or participation you had in the discussion, Brian? What was the part that drove you to make a presentation to City Council?
Well, once I found out that that corner was a sort of a chosen area, then I didn't know what to do actually. So I was looking at the report online at the city website, and I saw that Jerry Crank was the project manager. So I called Jerry, and he was quite habitable. He said, "I'll come over and we can talk," and he did. And but there wasn't much he could really do. I mean, he doesn't have to say whether they can choose that spot or not. He can recommend it, but it's not his decision. It's council's decision. So, not getting any really satisfaction out of him, I didn't know what to do. Do I need to get a lawyer? This sort of thing. And
what letter did you not get that they said they sent you?
There was 2 letters. One was last May, I believe it was, saying about the meeting.
Public meeting.
And that one I didn't attend because I was just recovering at knee surgery at the time.
Okay. So you received that one.
So that one I did get. Yes, it was hand delivered actually.
Okay.
By a city worker. They was
As
working
it should
out
be,
in the street.
or something like that, yeah.
Now the second one was September when they made their final report.
Okay.
And they said they sent that letter out and mailed it. But that's the one I didn't receive. So I didn't know anything about it, that the site had been changed or from the car wash area to mine, and I was just flabbergasted when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, after that I said, well, I was looking at the city website again, and I saw that Councillor Mitchell and Councillor Main were the chair and vice chair of the infrastructure committee. So I said, well, maybe I'll send them an email and maybe they'll come down and we can discuss things.
And those emails were sent November 29th and December 1st. The first one to Landa and then to Chris, I think that's what you said?
No, the first one
the other way around.
Yes, the other way around. The first one to...
So within a couple of days, November 29th,
yes.
December 1st. And no response?
No, none at all. Not even an acknowledgement. So, and I know it went through because I can look at my sent mail and it's there, and it never came back to me. So.
And what did that email say? Did it describe who you were, where you are, and what you wanted to know about?
Yes, it was. I did explain that I just learned of the situation, and I'd like a few minutes of their time if they could spare it. I suggested that maybe an on-site visit would be good, just so you can better look at things and explain things, and that was it. It wasn't that long a letter or anything. It just.
So what did you think about your time at council last night? You had a 10-minute presentation. Because you also tried to apply to make a presentation before Christmas.
Yes, they have an online form you can fill out to make a presentation. And I did that, but I got no response when I sent it. So this time I decided I'd go in. So after the first part of the new year, I went in, and I went right to City Hall this time, and I said, I'd like to make a presentation, and I sent one before, you didn't get it, and they looked around, he said, no, we didn't get anything. So anyway, they filled out another form for me, and we managed to get it for the 14th last night. So
now, Joanne Brousseau contacted me to let me know about your presentation. Has she been helping you at all?
No, because she had recently just called me too.
She found out that
she found out. I guess she was looking at the agenda for the meeting, and she called me and says, "I see you're making a presentation actually tonight." So
well, I'm glad she flagged it for me.
Yes, it was. I was about to call her before because I knew she was on council prior to the last election, and I knew her personally before that. So I was going to phone her and ask her for suggestions or help because I really didn't know who to turn to or anything. And
what do you think when your 10 minutes was up and you were only partway through your presentation?
I couldn't believe it. I don't know when they started the clock, whether it was as soon as I got up out of the chair or what, but that 10 minutes went by, I thought, pretty quickly. I mean, I would thought maybe half of that, but
and I have to give Mayor Peter Chirico credit that he did try to extend it by saying, because they have to form a question, right?
Right.
And so he said, "What else would you like to say?" I think he was leading them to sort of say, "You can finish your presentation by that question," but by then you were kind of a little bit not hearing what he said.
Well, I was trying to think. What else do I want to say at the same time to, try to pick out the important things in there. But
I think you could have just kept reading from where you left off.
Yeah, maybe.
That he was going to let it because they looked very open to hearing from you because you were a regular citizen they haven't heard from before. You had a legitimate concern. You had some issues getting in contact. So they were trying to help remedy it a little bit, I think. I'll have to give them that.
That is why, sort of in the dying minutes like that, I didn't have much time left to say anything. So I said that's why I said I did reach out to both Councillor Mitchell and Main.
Kind of put them on the spot a little bit, but that's okay.
Did they respond?
They have to check their emails. They apologized for missing the email and not getting back to them.
What's with your email? We have to check that. Your emails aren't getting through to anybody.
Well, I don't know if they just ignored them. I don't know how many emails they get.
Well, I had when Justine was here, we talked about her emails, and they have a screening thing sometimes. If you have an attachment, it goes into this special folder that they have to check.
Right.
And then it's deleted after 30 days.
Got it.
And they probably get a lot of emails and probably may have skipped it. I can't make excuses for them, but they do have an issue there.
Yeah, municipalities now, just because we work with the city of Hamilton on a couple of projects, and they had a hacking incident, and because opening up malicious, attachments, and it's so they're very municipalities more and more are like, hey,
you want to send a real clean email with no documents attached.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't send any documents with that email to them.
Well, that blows that theory out of the water.
Yeah. And what about is it a form, an online form you fill out to make a presentation?
Yes.
So
yes.
how would they have not received it then if it's an online form?
I don't know.
Because
although I was reading it later and it said you gotta, and it's a fillable form, so you can fill it right online. But then they said you gotta kind of, I guess, print it out, scan it, and then send it. And I didn't do that. I just sent it.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
Ben, do you mind checking the website for the city and look at how to make a presentation? I'd say that with probably under the community governance thing.
So if that's the case,
Council.
it may have been my fault, but
it goes to we've talked about this on a few different occasions about how the public needs to have access to council, to have access to have a voice.
That actually kind of floored me because, first of all, when I went to City Hall just to fill out the form or to tell them I'd like to make the presentation, to find the place to be met at the door with a security person, and then I couldn't even go up the elevator until they opened it with their card or whatever.
It's pretty tight.
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it's a public institution that I help pay for somehow.
Yeah.
And, you got no access at all. And
it's changed a lot before we went on this recording. Brian was telling us about, your grandfather was here. Like you have a long legacy in this community, your family and everything.
I do, yeah. I mean, it's just, my grandfather was fairly well known in the town. And
what was his full name?
Dan Hannison.
Dan Hannison.
Yes.
And they lived near the courthouse?
No, they lived...
in Castles?
No, they lived where I'm living now, actually.
Oh, okay. I thought
my dad lived in Castle Street.
Oh,
Dad was
okay,
Castles. Mom was,
I got it.
Yeah. We were piecing all of the family tree earlier on in the conversation, yeah?
I picked up so it's just a online form, it looks like, that you fill out.
And then you submit it there?
That's what it looks like, yeah. So it has all these different questions. If you need laptops, disclaimers, what you want to talk about, when you want to preferred date, person to appear, telephone number, all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you can just send it straith. You don't have to...
It has a submit button. So unless you actually, I don't want to go through the whole thing,
had.
but
yeah.
Then there's nothing, no language on how to do it elsewise.
Any other way?
Any other way? Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure someone from City Hall is listening right now. Like, gonna double check it.
they have their full presentation in written form.
Yes,
And
thank
I'm
goodness
pretty sure they
I
finished
sent it
reading it.
that way.
Yeah.
So they asked for an outline. I said, well, we're going to make an outline of that. And so I just sent the whole thing. And so they all have copies of it, including the pictures that I sent along with it. So they have no excuse, really, whether they read it or not. Now, they said it would go to public record again, but...
Yeah, there's going to be a public meeting, the next phase of that particular project, somehow. They said something like that. So there is another opportunity for them to change the plan.
Okay.
Okay, I'll have to listen for that.
It was very interesting to listen to somebody that's never been there, involved with trying to make a presentation with council before.
No, not at all. I've never had a reason to, really. So, it was a new experience for me altogether. And now that I've done it, I'd maybe change a few things next time.
What would you do next time?
So, well, I think I would get into the presentation right away. Like, never mind the nice stuff, maybe, but because I was trying to start off in a pleasant way and that sort of thing.
You
last
lost
night.
some minutes there,
and I was losing minutes. I mean that. Personally, I think it's crazy giving people a time limit like that, and especially using a timer. I mean, my taxes, I should have a right to say what I need to say, especially, when I've never been there before. And there was something that I really wanted to get across to them. And, the reason I made the presentation was because they ignored my emails. And this way, every member of council is a member of the infrastructure committee. So by having the public meeting or a presentation at council, then I reach everybody. And so when it does come up for a vote or decision or whatever, they got no excuse. So as long as they read my presentation, and I was a little disappointed that Councillor King said he couldn't print it out or whatever, but
he couldn't open up the photos or couldn't open up the presentation. He said,
"Oh yeah,
there was an issue."
I don't know why I find this all can't open things up. It's like
nobody's
crazy.
getting it. They're not
We're
getting back
using technology to try to help us move things faster. It's hindering the conversation.
Is what I asked them was they said, do you need a computer, or do you want to do PowerPoint? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm not that familiar with PowerPoint. I'm retired for 15 years, and so I said no, and I said, don't you have an overhead or something?
An overhead. Hey, I remember overheads, Brian.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So I was thinking of the pictures. I could just as I was talking, I could slip the picture under
It's
there.
so simple back then.
Yeah. And, oh, no, we don't have that. In fact, I don't even know if she knew what it was when I mentioned
Probably.
it. But anyway, that would have been simple.
An overhead, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And probably there might be, a suggestion for the city council to consider that when we have some senior citizens trying to communicate something like this, and they have photos to illustrate it, they could take the photos and make an overhead so everybody can see exactly what's going on during the meeting, rather than asking somebody to prepare a PowerPoint. But that's just a thought.
Is Don Rennick a senior citizen?
He certainly is, but what a feisty one he is, eh? We should have him in again. We should have him in again.
I would love. I've only heard your interview with Don Rennick. I would love an interview with Don Rennick.
Oh, okay. Well, let's set it up.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you know who Don Rennick is, Brian?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
He had one not too long ago about some financial matters that got people talking.
He usually gets people talking. Brian, thanks so much for joining us. We're going to follow your story. Please keep us in the loop with what's happening. We want to know what's going on. I'm going to have a drive down, and so I'm not going to be stalking you. I'm kind of curious now in the layout and what that looks like. I'll go to West Ferris. I think that's quite large. I didn't think it was that large, because I think I know the one you're talking about in West Ferris. I wondered what that was. Oh, that's a pumping station. Interesting. So I'd love to see, what kind of impact that would have, right, on the shores of Lake
Can you
Nipissing.
come down? You want to chat?
He's got a circular driveway. You can park right in
Can't miss it. It's right there.
Okay. I might pop in for a cup of coffee.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be nice, Brian. Thanks so much for coming in, Brian. We'll follow your story, okay?
My pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, and thanks for presenting to council. That's important stuff. That's another Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Dave Dale.
And I'm Scott Clark. Thanks for joining us.